first one, one's not going to promise miracles. Miracles may happen, but they aren't in our control. One's going to be working with the patient's morale, with the patient's fears, with the patient's hopes and fears, trying to relax and calm the patient. And a very tricky point is whether one's going to address mortality or not, and that's going to depend on your intuition about whether addressing that directly will be healing for them, or will be fearful, will be disruptive. Yeah, it's so individual. It's so specific, case specific. In my own practice, my impression is that the work is very helpful for those individuals who come seeking it, that it can be transformative, and that it also, when it's not dramatically transformative, it can be very, very valuable in negotiating some passage in life. But I do fear that many of us spend our life journeying and traveling the same ground, and there's that danger in the energy work. I know in cathartic energy work, there's whole school of energy work where the intention is to get a cathartic reaction from the patient, a dramatic tantruming and release of energy. The first school of Reiki that I learnt in Eleanor Moore and Anita Levin's work in Reiki was cathartic. And again, this can be transformative, but catharsis without transformation, without insight, without a change, without a switch, is just a release of steam. And that release of steam can be valuable, but there are catharsis junkies who, I'm not sure we can say this on YouTube. Wilhelm Reich, one of the fathers of energy work here in the West, conceived of orgasm as an important and necessary release of energy, release of vital energy, that energy accumulated, and that the orgastic release, whether it be sexual or masturbatory, was a release of this energy and a necessary process. But the energy builds up again. Likewise, in cathartic work, unless you change the situation or you change the ground inside, the energies are going to build up again and need to be vented and released. I can't remember our question, but energy work can be transformative or can be just a hand to hold. It can be just a necessary feeling that you're doing something. I think that when one has an emotional or psychological or spiritual problem, even a physical problem, that the first step is the intention. The first and in very real sense the most important step is that intention to change. And if there's that deep intention to change, then that's the beginning of the process that will almost certainly eventually find its solution. And sometimes energy work is just allowing people to begin to move that intention. And that's valuable. That's of value. hard to find yardsticks to judge the effectiveness of the work, and it's impossible when one's doing the work to predict the effect of the work. And the work goes from small to gigantic. There are psychic healers of immense power. I think of one of my friends, mentors, colleagues. In a transition, it was a transition from a straight scientist into a straight scientist, but who then focused on alternative medicine. His wife dragged him around the world investigating alternative healing. They were looking for solutions for their daughter, for a major problem she had. And he had a major back problem and had had for years. He had a cot in the lab, and every hour or so he would need to go and lie down. And they went to England, and Harry Edwards, a very famous healer in England, they went to see Harry Edwards, and after the session, he was down among the audience. He was talking to my friend and his wife, and he said to my friend, "Touch your toes." And my friend said, "I'm not the patient." He said, "Yeah, touch your toes." And I haven't touched my toes for years, and my friend reached down and touched his toes. There are healers of enormous power, and yet an openness and a receptivity. I'm sure that you or I could go in to see a healer like Edwards, and if it were our agenda to frustrate, to be frustrated, to have no healing, we could manage it quite easily. In very real sense, the healing is a process that happens in the patient, and the facilitator is a facilitator. Yes. It's to allow the healing to take place. In the cranial sacral work, when one lays one's hand and unwinds, one's following the patient. It's the patient that's releasing, and it's just something that's easier to do when we're invited to do it. It's easier to do when we have companionship, when we have that hand to hold.